Hello BookTube, Sarah here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my weekly reads for April the 7th of 2018. This could potentially be a shorter than normal weekly reads video because I only read 4 books this week. Now, saying only, I know that that is still really good, don't get me wrong, but it's not like last week, which was 7 books, so let's hope I can get this one in at a relatively decent time. I know you guys don't seem to mind it. These are actually some of my most watched videos, are my weekly reads, and I do absolutely appreciate that. So yeah, I guess we should just jump in and get started. I will start with what I'm drinking today. In my cold brew mug that I love so much with the flamingos on it, from David's Tea. This is the Cantaloupe Ice, which is one of their summer tea blends that came out last year. I think they brought it back for this year. I know I got the email this week from David's announcing some of the that the summer teas are back, and one of my favorites, and after I'm done here doing all my recording, I'm actually going to head out for a bit, and I might go over to David's to pick some up, and that is the frozen raspberry, which I just finished a couple weeks ago, and it is my absolute favorite. But the Cantaloupe Ice is really, really yummy too. So yeah, so it's actually colder than average today. They say we should be at like +8. And I think today we're only getting to a high of +2, and tomorrow they're calling for snow again. And we had a bit of snow yesterday. Now, it didn't stay on the ground. By the time I left work yesterday, I mean, and it was snowing quite, like, it was really wet snow. And by the time I left work, the ground just looked like it had rained. But yeah, it's still really cold, and, you know, I need spring. I need warm weather. I do love the winter. I'm a winter baby, being born in March, but I don't know. I just love the changing of the seasons, I think. I don't think I could live in a place where you don't get the seasons change. Because, you know, you kind of anticipate them. Like, I love fall and spring. They are my favorite. Fall especially, mainly because of pumpkin spice lattes. But that's besides the point. But I do love the season changes. You know, just when, you know, the heat of the summer and it's +40 degrees and you're just, you know, by August you're just done with it. And then comes September and you start to cool off, and then, you know, comes the winter, and you can, I think snow is beautiful. I think it's pretty. I don't mind when it's really cold, you know, as long as I don't have to be outside in it for an extended period of time. What I do hate is scraping a car and cleaning snow off a car and stuff like that. But then, you know, like, you know, by now I'm done with it and I am ready for summer. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think I could, like I said, I could live anywhere that didn't have the seasons change, because I really, really do love that. But yeah, so anyway, so that's what I'm drinking today. All right, so all that being said, little side tangent about the seasons and about weather. Let's jump into the books that I finished this week. So the first book that I finished this week was Confessions by Cynthia Eden. This is the first book in the Battling Maguire Boys series. This is a Harlequin intrigue novel number 1545. And this was published in 2015, of course, by Harlequin. It has a 4.05 star rating on Goodreads, and I gave it 3 stars. I had a few issues with the relationship in this book, which I will get into in just a minute. I got 4 challenges completed out of this one. The 2018 Word Hunt. This is a new challenge. They do this every month, but this is the first time for me doing it. And I saw it on this is on the A Million More Pages group on Goodreads. And every month there's a different theme, and this month's theme is Cinderella, or no, not Cinderella, excuse me, Sleeping Beauty edition. So they give you like 20 words, and you need to find those words within the text of the novel. The brilliant part is, because I read everything on an e-reader, I have the search function, and I can hunt out these words super duper easy. So this is fantastic. So there's actually 21 words. They give you a bonus word that, you know, if you can get it, great. If you can't, so be it. So I got the words dawn, beauty, dance, spin, and kiss out of this book. For the fairy tale spell out, I got the E in Elfmound. For the fairy tale bingo, this is the whole reason why I read this book, was because I needed it for the bingo challenge, which was to read a book with a 1-word title. And I didn't have any books that fit that criteria in my TBR for April. So I just went to my my Goodreads shelf, and I checked my Harlequin books, because they tend to be shorter and a little bit quicker to read. And this is the first one that came up, so I decided to go with this one. For the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs quarterly challenge, I got Black Onyx, which was read a book with a black cover or a romantic suspense. This is a romantic suspense. So the entire premise of this story is, it is about Scarlett and Grant. And they knew each other in high school. They met when she was a freshman and he was a senior. Problem number 1. But I'll get into that in a second. So they dated all through high school. Problem number 2. And then when she was graduating, when she turned 18, he broke up with her essentially, and, you know, figuring it was best for her, and he went off and joined the military, and that's where he's been for the past 10 years or so. He did come back a number of years earlier, and he started up a private investigations firm with his brothers. As I said, this is book number 1 in the Battling Maguire Boys series, so it's a series about 5 brothers. So you know there's going to be 5 books. There's actually 6 books because they have a sister, but that's that's neither here nor there. So anyway, she comes to him at the very beginning of the book, in like the prologue, you see the end of their relationship when she's graduating from high school. And then it jumps forward 10 years, and she kind of finds him, and she's in a rush, and she's like, I need your help. You always promised that if I ever needed you, that you would help me. And they haven't spoken in 10 years. And he's like, yes, I'll help you. What's going on? Well, then these other 2 people come in, and she's being arrested for murder. And she's claiming that she didn't murder her ex-fiancé. So the story goes from there. It's to try and figure out who killed him and things like that, you know, and that part of the story was really good, and I really enjoyed it. My issue, again, was with the relationship. They met when she was 14 and he was 18, and they dated the entire time she was in high school. If that had been me, my father would have definitely had something to say about that. You know, the age difference when you're younger seems a lot bigger than it is when you're older. Does that make sense? You know, like a 10-year relationship between 2 people, when, you know, she's 15 and he's 25, that's disgusting. That's, well, A, it's illegal, I think, in most places, and B, it's kind of crazy. But if you now flip it on its head and go, she's 25 and he's 35, that's a little bit more, you know, acceptable, right? So that was my first problem. My second issue was, so then when they broke up, she was 18 and he was 22. Again, that gap seems to get a little bit smaller. Had they have met when she was 18 and he was 22, it wouldn't have been such a big deal, I don't think. And none of this is brought up in the book. This is just my own personal thoughts on the subject. So, you know, if you are one of those people who had a relationship that had an age gap like that, more power to you. Because my husband and I are actually 3 years apart in age. So I'm 39 to his 42. You know, if we'd met and I was 15 and he was 18, that's a little different. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, my second thing was that they hadn't seen each other in 10 years. Within a 24-hour period of meeting, they were falling back into bed with each other. And I just thought, you don't know the person anymore. The person that you are when you're 18 is not the person you are at 28. You're a completely different person. You don't know what this person's been doing for 10 years. You don't know what kind of a person they've become or anything at all like that, you know, like, and you're just, I don't know, it's that insta-lust. I don't call it insta-love because a lot of the times at the beginning it's not. It might eventually grow into love in these kind of books, but at the very beginning it's insta-lust. And I just, yeah, I guess the author justified it because they knew each other before, they dated before, but yeah, anyway, so that was my issue with the book. If you can look past that, or that's something that's not going to, you know, kind of really bother you, but every time it was brought up, I kind of wanted to roll my eyes and go, you haven't talked to this person in 10 years. And A, she's being accused of murdering somebody, and you think this is perfectly acceptable to fall into bed with her. What I did like is that his brothers did comment on that fact and be like, you know, she is accused of murder, right? Like, you do remember that as you're coming out of the bedroom pulling your shirt back on. You know what I mean? So yeah, so that was, I liked it. I'm going to continue with the series, but the whole relationship age thing did kind of bother me a little bit. The next book that I finished was Gone Without a Trace by Mary Torjussen. This was narrated on audio by Emily Pennant Ray. It was published in 2017 by Berkeley, and it has an average rating of 3.65 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 4 stars. I really did enjoy this book. I got 5 challenges completed out of this one. This was my TBR jar pick for April of this year. April cover hunt. Same as I just talked about with the word hunt. This is a cover hunt. So you look at the cover of the books, and I think you're given 10 different things to find, and you know, you can find them on. Now, from what I did read is that I think you can use for the word hunt, you can use the book 5 times. So there might be 20 words to find, but you might only need actually 4 books to find all 20 words. So you can use a book up to 5 times. For the cover hunt, I think you can use the book up to twice. And for the covers, I found, for the Sleeping Beauty edition again, daughter. So it had to be a female on the cover, and there is a female on this cover. For the fairy tale spell out, I got the letter G in Frog Prince and the letter T in Thumbelina. for the week 9 task for my Cinderella challenge. Read a book where a character leaves their spouse lover. That's the whole point of this book. And there's another new challenge I'm doing called the Wheel of Fairy Tales, where you actually, they mocked up a wheel, like you spin a wheel, and it lands on a different fairy tale, and you've got to kind of make whatever book you're reading fit into that, or try and find a book that fits into that theme. And the first spin that I got was Pinocchio. And Pinocchio, the whole premise of Pinocchio is that he lies, and when he lies, his nose grows. So I went with the characters in this book lie. So this would be like a Pinocchio type theme in that aspect. So yeah. So 5 challenges. I really enjoyed this book, guys. Now, to be fair, I don't read thrillers, and I know this hasn't gotten the best ratings on Goodreads. I found it very engaging. I found it very interesting. I couldn't put it down. You know, I would be at work and be like, you know, when is my lunch so I can go and sit and listen to it for a bit longer. I really, really enjoyed it. So the whole premise of this, I don't want to talk too much about what it's about because it is a thriller. And, you know, typically they have, like, you know, a twist that I always hate. No, there's a twist in this book. Well, now I'm expecting the twist. You know, like, I don't want to talk too much about the plot. The essential premise is that this girl arrives home from work to find out that her boyfriend has left. And, like, taken everything. To the point where it looks as if he was never living there in the first place. Down to the coffee out of the cupboard, down to changing the bed sheets on the bed back to hers, you know, moving the TV that she had moved upstairs so they could put his flat screen in, and, you know, putting hers back, you know, in its spot, you know, erasing all of her pictures, all of her contacts, everything. You know, and then the whole premise of the book is her trying to find him and what happened to him. So, you know, it was really, really engaging, really good. It kept me guessing, essentially. And right up until the end, I was still guessing. But again, I don't read thrillers. And I was saying this to somebody else, I don't remember who I was talking to about it, but I'm like, to me, in a way, because I don't read thrillers, I really enjoyed this. So this is my analogy. It might not make sense to you guys, but it makes sense in my head, is that, you know, you've never had chocolate before, or you've only had like a couple pieces of chocolate, and you're like, chocolate's really good. I really like chocolate. You know, I don't care what kind of chocolate it is. Chocolate is good. And then you try like Cadbury chocolate or Lindor chocolate, and suddenly like that's like and they're like, oh my god, the other chocolate was nowhere near as good as this. So that's what I mean. To me, as somebody who hasn't read a lot of thrillers, this one was really enjoyable and I really liked it. But maybe once I start reading more, I'll realize that some of them are not as good as others. Same with romance, same with any kind of genre of novel. Literary fiction, classics, it doesn't matter. There's always some that are going to be better than others. But because this is still a new to me genre, I am really enjoying it. So yeah, so I liked it and I highly recommend it. And if you can get it on audio, listen to it on audio. I had no idea that it took place in the UK. And not that that matters, but the narrator on it was brilliant. She did such a great, she has such a beautiful accent just to begin with, just like narrating the book. But then when the characters would be speaking to each other, she went from having that very typical, I want to say Queen's English British accent, to, because the characters, some of them were working class and things like that, she slipped into that almost the Coronation Street or Cockney accent very, very easily. And I just absolutely love the words that, you know, the differences in words for things that are used in the UK as opposed to in North America. You know, like the boot of the car, the trunk. They had a row, which is a fight. You know, a jumper for a sweater or something like that. I just love it. I absolutely love it. And it just added that extra dimension to the story. You know, you really felt the characters were, you know, jumped off the page a bit more, if you will. So like I said, if you can, definitely listen to it on audio. The next book that I finished was No Good Duke Goes Unpunished by Sarah MacLean. This is book number 3 in the Rules of Scoundrels series, and it was narrated on audio by Rosalind Landor. This was published in 2013 by Avon. It has an average rating of 3.89 stars on Goodreads, and I gave it 4 stars. I got 4 challenges completed out of this one. Again, for the April cover hunt, this one was a beautiful cover. I absolutely consider this cover to be stunning. The next one for the Fairy Tale Spell Out, I got the N in Nightingale. This was for my Pass the Parcel challenge that I'm doing to read a historical novel. I went and looked on my TBR for April, and I do not have any historical novels. there. So I went to my like series list of series that I'm currently reading, and this one was at the top because I read the second book earlier this year back in January, and I'm like, yes, I can continue on to book number 3. And it was available through my library, which was great. And I also got, again, that Wheel of Fairy Tales. I got Ugly Duckling, because, again, to your own interpretation, that's how this Wheel of Fairy Tales works, is, you know, if you can justify it, they will allow it. And for Ugly Duckling, it's, you know, the duckling is ugly, and then he has a transformation and becomes beautiful. In this book, Temple, the main lead character, has been accused of murder. And then throughout the course of the book, he gets redeemed, and, you know, things like that. So he goes from, you know, being shunned by society to being embraced by society. So that's the Ugly Duckling theme. It kind of makes you think, as you're reading these books, like how some of these, they are such common, and I hate using the word tropes, but they're such common narratives and stories that they, you know, really, you can find them anywhere. Throughout any book, there's like a handful. And, you know, somehow it's the way the author interprets that theme and, you know, kind of runs with it. And it's a lot of fun. So this story is, like I said, it's about Temple, and he is one of the co-owners of the Fallen Angel, which is a gaming hell in London, in Regency, England. And 12 years earlier, he was accused of murder. The morning that his father was supposed to be remarried, his father had this would have been his father's third marriage. He was marrying a much younger woman. I mean, a woman even younger than Temple. Temple would have been about 18, and the girl was only 16. Her name's Mara. And he woke up in the morning with no memory of what happened the night before, to finding the sheets in the bed completely covered in blood, like a horrible murder had taken place. And the girl was gone, and he was pretty much accused of her murder and became known as the Killer Duke. And he was shunned by society. He was kicked out of his father's estate. He ended up living on the streets, which is where he met Chase and Bourne, who are the other two co-owners of this gaming hell. And, you know, you've already, I think both of their stories have already come. I know Bourne's was first, and, no, Chance's book was second, and then Chase's book is last. It will be the 4th book in this quartet of books. And, you know, then they start this, you know, gaming hell. Now Mara has come back. Now, I'm not giving anything away. You find this out right at the very beginning of the book. And it's, you know, pretty much she runs under an assumed name, because everybody thinks she's dead, an orphanage for boys. And this isn't your typical orphanage, like an orphanage for the poor per se. This is an orphanage for boys who were born on the wrong side of the bed sheets, essentially, as they like to say in these books. Essentially boys born to very, very aristocratic men who had relationships with their mistresses, and the mistresses, of course, got pregnant, or, you know, maybe the maids, or some other housekeeper, or the governess, or whatever. But these boys are not, you know, they were not born within the proper wedlock, so they would not be heirs to whatever fortune there might be. So this is an orphanage that she has, and she's paid very well by these men that they kind of hand her these boys, and then she takes the money, and, you know, like, they pay her handsomely for it. Well, her younger brother has now squirreled away all that money gaming at this gambling hell. So Mara goes to Temple to pretty much say, hi, I'm still alive, and I need you to erase my brother's gambling debts, but will not tell him why. So it's kind of a back and forth throughout the whole story of, you know, why she wants him to erase this. You know, she's pretty much agreeing to come back out into society to say, hey, everybody, I'm still alive. He didn't kill me. But in return, he's got to erase these debts. But she won't tell him why she needs him to get rid of these debts. So it was a really good story. I really enjoyed it. The narration on these books is great. I've listened to all of them so far on audio, and they're all narrated by the same person. You know, you're meeting back up with the other characters, and I do love the characters from the first couple books. I highly recommend this series. If you like Regency romance, these are great, and they're such a great twist on the typical Regency romance that you might read, especially with this whole gambling, you know, thing going on. You know, that's not proper by society's terms, if you will. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to the 4th book, and I really hope I can read it in the next few months. And the last book that I finished this week was Silence of the Lamb's Wool, which is still like one of my favorite titles. And this is book number 2. Oh, it's by Betty Hechtman, excuse me. It's book number 2 in the Yarn Retreat Mystery Series, and it was published in 2014 by Berkley. It has a 3.9 star rating on Goodreads, and I gave it 3.5 stars. I got 3 challenges completed out of this one. This was my April monthly challenge, number 6, which was for Easter Sunday, which was to, read a book with a small animal on the cover. There's an adorable kitty cat, on the cover. For the April word hunt, the 5 words that I got were daughter, princess, 7, Grace, and I got the word spindle, which was the extra word, the bonus word that I was talking about. And for the fairy tale spell out, I got the H in 3 pigs. So, I like this story. I liked it better listening to it, or reading it, as opposed to listening to it on audio. And after I finished the book yesterday, the more I started thinking about it, I think the reason why it didn't work for me on audio was because at the time I was listening to it, I think I mentioned this last week, I was driving to Rhinebeck, to the New York Sheep and Wool Festival last October, when I listened to book number 1. And during part of the drive, or a good chunk of the drive, it had to be 3 or 4 hours, I was off of the interstate, and I was actually driving through the Adirondack Mountains. And my GPS, or my Google Maps on my phone, was kind of telling me where to go, in a nice way, not in a mean way. But you're driving through this very mountainous area, and it's like, every 5 minutes you're being told to turn, and you've really got to pay attention to where you're going, and it wasn't like a straight run on a highway. I didn't know where I was going, and I think that took away from the listening experience for me, because you're having to pay a bit more attention to where you're going, as opposed to, it's not that you should ever just zone out while you're driving, but do you guys know what I mean? If you go somewhere quite often, or you know where you're going, you don't have to pay as close attention to where you're actually, like, the directions, as you do to listening or something. So that's why I think I might try the 3rd book on audio. I believe my library has it, and just see how it fits up, because I did enjoy this. I gave it 3.5 stars. So the whole premise of this book is, there's a girl named Casey, and she has inherited, the premise of the series is that she's inherited her aunt's yarn retreat business. And her aunt passed away. And of course, as it happens in Cozy Mysteries, somebody always dies. And in this one, she is going to be hosting a retreat called the Sheep to Shawl Retreat. And in that retreat, the person who's to teach drop spinning to the class ends up dead. The mystery aspect of the story was really, really good, and I really enjoyed it. I was kind of on par to give this book 4 stars. And then the more I thought about it when I finished it, I was like, there's an aspect in it that's bothering me, and I can't wrap my head around what it is. That as a crafter, as a knitter, as someone who does the fiber arts, was bothering me. And I was looking through some of the reviews on Goodreads, and it's actually my friend Christy Rose. I'm not sure if you watch, but if you do, hello. She had read this book, I think, last year, and she posted this, and I'm like, that's what it is. That the entire retreat itself didn't seem possible to me. So let me explain what a sheep to shawl is, because it is a thing, or a sheep to sock, or a sheep to sweater. So essentially what that is, for those of you who don't know, is literally you are right from taking the wool sheared off the sheep to knitting the sweater. You are doing every single step of that process. And, she talked about the fact that they were actually going to go and watch the sheep being sheared, and then taking that fleece, and then turning that fleece using spinning to turn it into yarn, to then take that yarn to knit a shawl. It happens. People do it all the time. I mean, there are a lot of knitters who love doing that, and kudos to them. I actually brought a show and tell just to show you guys that this is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So I don't have a sheep here. There's no sheep. Sorry. So essentially what you would do is you would, shear the sheep, and then you have to clean that wool, because if you think about a sheep out in the pasture, he's not pristine and clean and fluffy like, a cotton ball. He's going to be covered in dirt and grass and other kinds of icky things that get picked up. He's an animal. And, so you've got to clean that wool, right? And then you've got what's called carding it. And carding is these big square, paddles. Big square paddles with metal hooks on them, or metal, and you have to run it back and forth. You might have seen this. If you ever go to a pioneer village or something like that, you've probably seen this and experienced it. And you have to do that to essentially make the yarn a little bit nicer. And the yarn ends up, excuse me for the crinkling. I will show you. and ignore the color, but essentially you're going to get this, right? Unless your sheep is a psychedelic sheep, it's not going to be in this color. If you wanted it colored, then you're going to have to dye it. That's an entire other step. So I'm assuming, you know, they were just going to do it with the natural colors, right? So then you would card it and get something like this. It's clean and it's ready to go. Now you have to spin it. So you can use a spindle or a spinning wheel, which is on the cover of these books. I don't have a spinning wheel. I kind of wish I did, but I don't have the room for anything like that. I do actually have a drop spindle. And this takes a lot longer to do because it is by hand. But in this book, this is how the characters were going to do it, was learning how to drop spindle. So this is my drop spindle. I have a couple of them. This one has Canadian flags on the top. Isn't it adorable? So this is yarn that I have spun. Now, I don't do this very often, guys. I haven't done this in a while. It's been a long time, and I am still a newbie. This is thick and thin and totally not perfect, but it is what it is. So I thought I'd show you guys real quick, like a little show and tell, if you will. So take it, and again, I am in no means an expert. Please do not consider this to be any type of lesson because I am no way a teacher for this. Let me see if I can hook this on here. Those of you who do this are probably laughing at me currently. Come on, hook up. So you essentially hook it. Or no, you don't. Okay. So there we go. Hooked. Okay. So you hook it, right? For that little... Really? You're embarrassing me, Spindle. Mr. Spindle. Do you? I can't remember. It's been so long since I've done this. Right? And essentially what you're doing is spinning. So you're going to give it a spin, right? You see it spinning. And then you're going to stop it. And that, it's a scientific, I'm not scientific by any stretch of the imagination. That momentum will cause this to, of course, you know, the kinetics or whatever will go up and will twist the yarn. And then you do it again, right? And then it keeps traveling up this yarn. And then you'd unhook it and you wrap it around here, right? And then you rehook it again. Give yourself a little bit more leeway. I'm trying to do it. This isn't the way I would normally do it. I'm just doing it to show you guys. And then you totally break it. But you see the kinks in it because you've spun it, right? And then, so in other words, I have been practicing doing this for like 2 years, and I'm nowhere near an expert. These people were going to get taught this in a weekend and expect to go, or a week. I just read it yesterday and I can't remember how long it went. I think it was like a week. But from shearing the sheep to spinning the yarn, enough yarn to be able to knit a shawl, and then to knit the shawl. That is a process that someone who is good at this would take months and months to complete. This is not a weekend thing. And it wasn't until Christy mentioned it in her review that it dawned on me and I went, yes, you are absolutely correct. There, now I've got it. I couldn't remember how to hook it. So we spin, right? We unhook, put it on there. So you think, look at that little bit of yarn. This would take forever. Let me see if I can do it. You guys must be totally bored with this. Feel free to skip ahead. So you have to draft, right? So you have to pull it because you do not want these big lumpy, right? So you have to draft it to make this a little bit thinner. Then you hold it and you spin it. There we go. Now I got it. So, right? And then you can actually watch as it goes up the yarn and you can draft it a bit more. So yeah, and that's by hand. And that's how they were going to do it. That was really unbelievable to me. And I'm pretty sure it's actually a knitter who writes these books because there are knitting patterns included in the back. So yeah, that part of it was a big disappointment to me. So I'm sorry if that was really boring for you guys. But yeah, so that was my main issue with the book and why I dropped it a 0.5 star rating. Here's my my fleece that I'm using to spin. This is a stripy Corriedale. It's called Winter Nights is the colorway. And this is, yeah, Corriedale is I almost said, it's a brand of sheep. It is a type of sheep, but of course this yarn is dyed. Corriedales do not come in this color as far as I know. But yeah, I'm not a spinner. I do buy it because I think it's really pretty, but I just don't have time between everything else that I'm knitting and doing and reading to sit down and learn to spin. I have friends who can spin amazing, and they make their, like, they have their own, they spin their own yarn and then they knit stuff with it, and it's just, that's so amazing to me. You know, I have the tools to do it. It takes practice, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist, sadly. Not sadly, but it's part of my personality. So, excuse me for the zipper. So, you know, I really should just sit down for 15 minutes every day and just do it for a little bit, and eventually I will have something that I could actually knit something with. But anyway, that's all besides the point. So, yeah, so that's what I thought about that book. So, oh, excuse me, let me reach for my tablet, and let me tell you what I am currently reading. My current audiobook is called Hungry Heart, Adventures in Life, Love, and Writing by Jennifer Weiner. This is being narrated by the author. This is another one for a challenge that I had to do. I believe it was the Mango Challenge, and this week's was Tom Thumb. And you had to find a book that had the same two letters, or the same letters for all the words in the title. So in this case, it's Hungry Heart. I don't have to worry about the stuff after the, you know, the secondary title. And I was searching on my library everywhere, and I was looking at fiction, and I couldn't find anything that was jumping out at me to read. A lot of second or third books in a series, but nothing first in a series, or nothing that a series I was already reading or anything like that. So I thought, well, let me check nonfiction. And this was like on the second page that I came up, and I was super duper excited. Jennifer Weiner is an author I have actually not read, but I'm familiar with her. I now want to read all of her books because this audiobook has been so enjoyable. So it's her memoirs. It's in a series of essays, which a lot of people, it's very kind of popular now. A lot of celebrities, if you will, are doing that. And I identify with this woman so much. Now, granted, she is Jewish. She comes from a broken home. Not a broken home. Her parents didn't divorce until she was in her 20s or in college. Very highly educated college graduate or university graduate. And she's dealt her entire life with being overweight. And I just really identified with her on so many levels. Obviously not the whole religion thing, but, you know, because that is different for the two of us. But, you know, just being that social outcast for various reasons. And I think that we all can identify with that in a bit. So far I'm really enjoying the book. Her humor is fantastic. Of course, she's a writer. That's what she does. And it's thoroughly enjoyable. And I just got through the chapter where she talks about selling her first book. And it was so interesting, and, you know, I loved it. If you enjoy this author's work, definitely hunt this out and check it out. See if your library has it. And I do recommend it on audio because she really is doing a great job with the narration. The other book that I'm currently, my ebook, is The Chocolate Comeback by Roxanne Snopek. This is book number 7 in the Love at the Chocolate Shop series. I literally just started this morning. I'm not even finished the first chapter yet. So I still have a bit of a ways to go on this one. This is about Dee Dee, and she is twin sister to Maddie. And Maddie you met 2 or 3 books ago. She was the one, she was actually the main character in my favorite book in this series so far. I think it was The Chocolate Cure. And it was about the man who ends up in the ER, and he'd been in like a plane crash, and she kind of nurses him back to health kind of idea. But this is now her twin sister who had left town to go and pursue a modeling career. And unbeknownst to her family, she has fizzled and she's not famous anymore. So she's come back, but they don't know that. They think that she's just taking a break. And, you know, it's essentially her story. So I am really looking forward to it. So the last thing, of course, that I want to talk about is what I am currently knitting. And that is another sweater. I cast on another sweater. I'm looking at the time going, yeah, this video is just as long as all the other ones because I had to talk about spinning. So anyway, it is what it is. So yes, I am knitting another sweater. This pattern was gifted to me by my friend Jess, and it's not very interesting right now. I've literally just started it. This is the sleeve. So there's a gorgeous cable on there, which I just absolutely love. This is actually considered to be an advanced pattern. It is called Rose. The pattern's called Rose. I'll link it in the description box below on Ravelry if you guys are interested in going to see the pattern. And it is a huge, oversized cardigan. Like, I mean huge. It's meant to be 2 or 3 sizes too big. And they tell you if, you know, for me, and I don't care, I have a 38-inch bust area, which is what you measure to knit a sweater. My finished measurements for this will actually be a 60-inch bust, which I'm knitting to that, like you're supposed to. They tell you, if this is your bust size, this is what size it will actually end up being. So this is a huge oversized cardigan. And it's got the sleeves that kind of like hang like down, like, not hang down, but like they like, do you know what I mean? You kind of got this, like this flying squirrel thing going on. It's the only way I can think about it. But it's an advanced pattern because you actually knit it in 4 pieces, 4 quadrants. So you knit like the back right and the back left, and then the front right and the front left, and it's actually seamed at the shoulder, on the arms. So the center of the arms. So this part, this cable here, is 1/2. The cable will be going the other way on the other side, and that's what will run down the center of your arm, which is very cool. It took me a bit. The more and more I looked at the pattern, I was like, I don't know if I like it. But it's so grown on me the more and more I'm looking at it, going, this is going to be such a cozy, comfy sweater. And I know it's not for everybody, but I'm really, as much as I want to have it to wear it, I'm super excited about actually knitting it because of the construction. And I find that really interesting as a knitter, like how it's put together. So yeah, that's where I am so far. The pattern also calls for you to use, I think, 4 different colors, and you fade the colors together. There's a lot going on in this pattern already. Like as you're knitting this, you know, like on this row, you've got to make sure you're doing this, and then on this next row, you've got to remember to do this and this. So it's not just like straight back and forth, you know, whatever. There's things you've got to remember on each row. Excuse me. I was not going to add into the mix having to change colors. So I thought I'm knitting it in one color, and I really like this. It's kind of like a gray purple, like a mauve. I love it. I think it's going to be really, really cute. But anyway, yeah. So that is it. That's what I'm knitting, and it's living in this adorable little kitty cat bag right now that I have. It is obviously not going to fit in this bag. This is kind of my, because I've been taking this to work with me because I've been loving working on it. So I wanted something small that I could just kind of throw in my lunch bag purse thing. So yeah. So anyway, guys, that's it. Again, sorry, a longer video. I do apologize. I will let you guys go. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them, and or what was your favorite book that you read this week. And until my next video, guys, take care and happy reading. Bye.